All right, true crime fans, this is the 5th episode of the True Crime Grapevine. I'm your host, Patti Lee. I am going to tell you what everyone's been talking about on the True Crime Grapevine of the YouTube channels and various publications, just kind of what's been in the news the past week. My producer has been on vacation, so hopefully this all works out, but let's unpack and get into it. This week we have an update on the GMAX trial, an update on a new indictment for the Murdaugh trial, or Murdaugh, as they say in South Cackalack. There's been a lot happening in the Vallow Daybell trial. An update in the Ethan Crumley case related to his parents. Little blip in the Morphew case, and a cuckoo for coconuts theory of my own. Make sure you get your tinfoil out, make a hat, settle back for that one. Chandel Halderson was sentenced and has appealed. We'll get to that. Then there's some corrections and catch-up on things that I sort of missed in the past weeks, and one correction to make. So let's get into it. Case number 1 update, we have GMAX. So GMAX is Ghislaine, and it's a posh English name that we don't hear typically in the U.S., which is where I'm located. An update regarding the Juror 50 transgressions we spoke about last week. So if you remember, Juror 50 just completely forgot that he had been essayed as a child, even though the whole case was about that, and he just said he flew over the questions. The judge had given him immunity, so he wasn't going to get in trouble for saying why. So that was last week. So what has happened since then is that the prosecutors filed a brief for the judge to say, look, obviously this was an honest mistake, and they don't think it really affected how the person deliberated. And then, and of course, right after that filing, the defense filed and said, hello, new trial. Obviously, we wouldn't have wanted that person on the jury. It affected their jury, decision making, blah, 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 blah. As of today, which is Tuesday, March 21st, we don't know. So we will likely hear, probably as soon as I'm done filming, we'll hear about that. But if you listen to defense attorneys such as Scott Reich on the CrimeTalk, he will tell you, obviously, she needs a new trial. Prosecutors, obviously, on the other side, think, look, this was a long time coming. She'll probably get a new trial, is my guess. Murdaugh update. Alec Murdaugh from South Cackalack. He is the person who his wife and son were murdered. His son was involved in a death of a classmate, and they were being sued for that death. And then during all this, he tried to get somebody, this is all allegedly, tried to get someone to end his life for him because apparently he was so distressed, is his take. Other people feel like it was sort of a weird setup. Anyways, then all this stuff came out about his mismanagement of money. I mean, it's just a crazy case. So what happened in the Murdaugh case? Well, part of the mismanagement that we specifically know and he's charged with doing relates to his housekeeper who fell at their Moselle property, which was like their hunting lodge property. She fell while the wife and the son, the two people who were at that same Moselle property, they had called 911. She fell. It was like 2 weeks later, and she passed away from her injuries. Alec spoke to the family, because she was like family to them, and said, look, here's what you're going to do. We have insurance. You sue us, and I'll get you the best guy. So the best guy that he got was his best friend, somebody he had gone to college with and was the godfather of his son, which he did not disclose as a conflict of interest to the family of Gloria Satterfield, the person who fell down at his house. So Corey Fleming was instrumental in getting the Satterfield children to put a bank person as their personal representative, and allegedly holding this out as like, this is a professional person who can handle money for you. But what that did was only the personal representative knows if there was any sort of culmination of the case. So, and of course, with the family cut out of knowing what happened next, Alex insurance companies somehow, which this isn't spoken about, I guess we'll find out about it, but if you've ever had an insurance claim, usually you have to fight tooth and nail to get it paid off. This was paid off, the slip and fall death, for almost like over $3 million, I think almost $4 million. No problem, but the personal representative, who was the bank person, knew about it. And Corey and Alex, through Corey, told the judge it was supposed to be filed in court, like, you know, this is the settlement, like it's a sentence, it's the ending, the culmination of a case. Even if it's a civil case, they didn't want it like done in court. They didn't want a record of it because, you know, Alex knew that there would be a problem with any sort of money that his firm would get. It's all very convoluted, but he wanted to hide the fact that he got any money from Mallory Beach's family, who was suing him for the death of their daughter in the boat accident. Again, there's lots of deaths, lots of insurance, lots of civil suits and criminal suits. Now, the upshot is Corey Fleming's involvement resulted this past week on, I think it was on St. Patty's Day. No, it was March 18th. He was indicted on 18 charges. All related to, you know, mismanagement of funds, insurance, conspiracy to defraud, all the money-related things. The judge that was involved, we are assuming any minute to also be indicted because, you know, agreeing to finalize things without going actually through court and making a public record of it is a big no-no, even in the good old boy network in South Cackalack. So, what is that saying? Oh, something wicked webs we weave when first we practice to deceive. Yeah. Alec got caught in his own web of deceits, and it seems like that web is now drawing in all of his family and friends. Yeah, the allegations are that he paid off, that Corey Fleming took what part of the money that Alec gave him from that big settlement. So they never gave it to the family, right? So instead they took it, moved it into what looked like an annuities, which is, you hear those commercials all the time about, I want my money now. They're like money management firms for when you get big settlements, and they dole it out little by little. That they set up a fake one that had a name kind of like a real one. So it looked real, but it wasn't. Allegedly, this is all speculation on my part, you know, as to what I understand from the court filings. But with that money, then Corey got a cut from the millions. I don't know exactly how much of the millions he got, but he paid off, apparently, allegedly, paid off his credit cards, paid off his mortgage, bought, you know, personal items. You know what you do with ill-gotten gain. Allegedly, I assume one would do, and he is alleged to have done it. So, Deborah Barbier, who interestingly used to be a federal prosecutor in the state. So again, there's a lot of weird switching around of sides, which I guess it's allowed, but so she knows the ins and outs of the system. So he's being prosecuted, and now she used to be the prosecutor for crimes exactly like this. Now she is his defense attorney. So, little Debbie, we'll see how she does for Corey. The next update is for the Lori and Lori Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell. You've heard it called the Colt Case. All right, so there were a couple hearings last week. Lori Vallow Daybell, her case has been stayed because she was deemed incompetent, and we are supposed to hear at any minute, is she or is she not competent still? and I believe I spoke about it in the past episodes, but as I understand it, in Idaho, since this was enacted, I believe it was since the John Hinckley case in the 80s, since they no longer allow, Idaho no longer allows a defense of insanity. Instead, you're deemed incompetent, and then if you become competent, then you're charged. And everything else is like stayed. The clock stops. It doesn't continue for like problems with statute of limitations. Although, with the big M, there is no statute of limitations. But she also has like insurance fraud and conspiracy for other things with Chad. So they did these crimes. They're charged both together, and that's another point of what they're trying to talk about is Chad wants them severed. They want them to be tried separately. So her case is at a standstill anyway, and his lawyer John Pryor has been saying, "Look, Judge Boyce, let's get real. I need to make this case, and I'm going to approach it differently if it's severed, just Chad alone versus with his wife. And I need to know because it's coming up. And, it's a big case for the big M and with the big D as the punishment. Yeah, it's serious. So, the more serious the punishment, and with that most serious punishment, the person that's being accused gets every benefit of the doubt, because that's what we want in our society. Because that's a mistake you can't take back, right? If you go, oh, wow, they didn't really do it. And that has happened. So, right now, they're both set for a joint trial in January of 2023. So John Pryor was like, come on, Judge, come on. That's just my interpretation. I don't think he actually whined. You can decide for yourself. So that happened Friday. They had a couple of hearings Friday. We don't know about her mental capacity yet. So just yesterday, Monday afternoon, the Big E on Twitter, it's the docket. He and also Pretty Lies and Alibis, really close together. They both put out the new filing. So the new filing was Judge Boyce denied the severance of the cases. They will remain joined. And then I believe again, both Pretty Lies and Alibis and the docket had put out, there was a small, tiny, little, that a hearing had taken place, a documentation that a hearing had taken place, but it was sealed. We don't know what it was, but it had listed that Lori Vallow was there, and it listed that that Archibald, her court attorney who is death qualified, was there. So Judge Boyce has seen, I believe it was the 11th, he has seen what people said about Lori's competence. We haven't heard anything yet. Oh, what I was going to tell you earlier, before, is that it's very rare for a incompetent person to still be incompetent after the first 90 days and then the 180 days. Usually by that time, 98%, there's one person in 20 years who was not found competent after that length of time. So now we don't know about Lori, but statistically it would be unlikely. And now with this filing and with Boyce keeping the cases joined, if you're reading the tea leaves, as they say, it seems like it could be going. So is she or isn't she? What do you think? Put in the comments below, if you're watching on YouTube, what you think, if she's going to be found competent or not. Everybody's kind of hoping, because we would like this to get going and we would like it to remain joined. There's a lot of talk about you can sever a case. There was a Supreme Court case called Brudent, I believe. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Brudent, usually the cases are named after somebody, a case involving that person's name, and then it carries forward as known by that person's name. And this Brudent was in a case with a co-conspirator, and there had been a problem with evidence that was allowed in for his co-conspirator as evidence, but the judge said, so don't consider that evidence for Brudent. That's it's hearsay, and afterwards they found, well, the jury can't really unhear, like a judge's instruction isn't really enough to protect from prejudice the person who the evidence was hearsay, when the other person, it was about them. And I believe the case, what involved was a statement from Brudent's co-conspirator was in jail with somebody else. That other person said, okay, this co-conspirator told me all about it, and he said yes, he was there, and he said yes, Brudent did it too. Okay, so because it was hearsay for Brudent, because it wasn't directly, he did not say it to this person. The other defendant said it to the person. So they could question the person as like, it's part of our Sixth Amendment rights. Scott Reich explained it really well. Again, he's a defense attorney, so he takes the defense tact to heart. And if you want to know that perspective, he is your guy. So it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, look, the cases should have been severed because it was prejudicial to have that statement that was secondhand, which is hearsay, which can't be used, was still heard by the jury for Brudent, and it wasn't supposed to be considered, but how could they not, right? I mean, it's called, they use the term unring a bell. You heard it. You can't not hear it once you heard it. So that's what they were trying to do at the Valo case. So what Judge Boyce wrote was basically what Pryor had argued was that he doesn't know, it's inhibiting his ability to defend his client. And that's not one of the three things in Idaho, which is a reason. And Scott Reich was talking about like a statement that might happen, and you have to disclose these statements. But this is all hypothetical. There is no statement. We're talking about the situation doesn't exist, ergo, this is moot point. Right now, there is no person that one of them spoke to that somebody's going to say they confessed to me. So, and that's not what John Pryor argued. He just argued like, this makes it difficult for me to do. So Boyce said, no, still joined. Okay, so Boyce might just be giving a very good interpretation, a very literal interpretation of what a Brudent would be, and saying no, that we don't have that situation. And we've already got the case moving to Ada County, whether we bring in people or whether the case all moves to Ada County, which is in Boise. So that's a 10-week trial. And now you want two of them? That's crazy. I mean, he didn't say that, sorry. That's my interpretation of part of this is, look, we're already going to have, they're giving them every benefit, not people from their community because it's so small. So we're having it, they're allowed to have it moved. But we're still going to have it together because otherwise that would be two separate trials. And right now we don't have a reason why. So it might not have anything to do with Lori's competency. And if she isn't competent, that's another 180 days. And he likely won't need to worry about her being at his trial anyway. And I don't know what happens then. We have our lawyer friends, such as Lori Hellis, who is part of the team, especially on Friday nights. She and Lauren from a hidden true crime. They talk about it. Lori Hellis she's a lawyer. She digs into this case. She's writing a book about the Valo Daybell case. And Scott Reich, from a defense perspective, he will explain it all. So we'll find out what happens if she still is incompetent. It is the 21st or the 22nd today. We should hear, we should know, because I think the 22nd was the deadline from the last 180 days. So, interesting. All right. Let me just take a second to ask you, please, if you are watching this on YouTube, to like, subscribe, share for any of your friends who are interested in true crime and don't have hours upon hours to listen and look up every single case's update, or maybe just has a long commute and would like to hear somebody babble about something sort of interesting that's not part of their daily life, like a babbling brook. or maybe even one of your friends who has insomnia. So share this wherever you think, to somebody who might like it. And if you could subscribe, it's free, and you could always unsubscribe. And if you could hit that like button, I would really appreciate it. All right, next update is the Crumley case. So Ethan Crumley was 15, he is, I don't know when his birthday is, but he was 15 this November when he made a very poor decision with a weapon at his school. And this is part of our lives now, right, that we have this. This was in Michigan, in Oxford, Michigan, at the Oxford High School. The problem and the what is new about this case is that the circumstances surrounding it involve the parents. And unlike other school shooting cases, this time the parents were charged. Why? Well, they were charged with the manslaughter of the 4 students that were, and it was horrific. Lots of people also hurt in this. Anyway, they were charged because there was social media evidence that showed that where they said they provided their son with a weapon for, I believe it was for a Christmas present, early Christmas present, or maybe it was his birthday. They provided, but it was a gift to their son who was 15. So that is against the law to, a 15-year-old may not own a weapon. They took him as an activity to learn how to use the weapon. And then there were multiple text messages where the son was in school looking up ammunition for the weapon, and he got in trouble, and the mom said, well, next time you've got to hide it better. Basically not concerned anything that he was looking up about ammunition. At the same time, shortly thereafter, on the day of the occurrence in November, the school had been trying to get in touch with the mom about the looking things up, but he had on that day he had written on a test, like, he sees blood everywhere. Like, it just, if you you can look up his test. After he got in trouble, he scratched it out, but the teacher had taken a picture, I believe, beforehand, so you can see what the teacher saw, and the fact that they had the before and after pictures. So the parents did come in for this, and they called them in and said, look, your son is, like, basically disturbed. He is writing about hurting people here at school. They chose and told the school, no, he's going to stay at school, because they wanted him removed and evaluated. So the issue becomes, they did not share with the school that he had been provided a weapon. They also did not share that he could have it on him, which unfortunately he did. So then when he was sent back to class, it was in his book bag, and chaos ensued. So if you provide somebody with something and you don't let the other adults know that they have something, that is problematic. Now, Scott Reich, the defense attorney on Crime Time, talks about how it's not the parent's responsibility if a kid does this, because you can't watch a kid 24/7. If they're going to choose to make a bad choice, that's on them. So here's what I have to say about that. My background in my PhD work is in child development, and I will tell you, this child is 15. This child was provided the means and the opportunity to use a weapon, and was encouraged to do so, and these adults did not tell any other adults when, faced with, this might be a problem, this person looks unstable, didn't even give them the information that that person could possibly have it. And the dad, as soon as he heard, apparently called 911 and said, oh my gosh, my gun is missing. So here's the deal. Allegedly, and through the information that we've seen through the social media, it was the child's weapon, and I do not believe that they locked it up from him, and them not keeping track of it and then giving it to him and not keeping track of it is on them because he is 15, and 15-year-olds do not have the capacity, their frontal lobes, the part of your brain is not fully myelinated, and you don't have enough experience. That's why 15, 16, 17, 18, up to in your early 20s, make poor decisions of like what could possibly happen, hypotheticals, because they can't think that way. And that's why they're not criminally responsible until they're adults. So, also he was on an IEP, and if you know anything about special ed, is schools are responsible for providing a free and appropriate education, and there's special parts of the law that protect them more against like outbursts and behavioral issues, because in the past schools have used behavior problems of frustration and other things to throw out kids who, like suspend them all the time, and then they're not getting their education, and it's kind of a way to sideline them. So the law really protects a child with special needs to be in school somewhere. So I think that is what, from my understanding, and this is allegedly, that the Crumleys enacted that sort of like, hey, you can't throw him out. He's going to stay here. You figure it out. That's your job. It's during school hours. He's on an IEP. Like, he needs to be here learning. And then they left. And that's, right after that, is when he went to class. And nobody knew he had anything on him. So, they went to court today, the parents. So Ethan's case is separate from theirs. And what happened just this morning on Tuesday was there was a pretrial hearing, and the judge is concerned. So we talked about severance in the Vallow-Daybell case. In these parents' cases, so Vallow and Daybell have different lawyers. In this case, they were using the same firm, I believe, like two lawyers, but from the same firm. So basically the same law firm, and people sharing all the case information and everything. And the judge said, look, this is probably, they have a little bit different responsibilities, it looks like, from the evidence right now, and she thinks that it's better that they have two separate lawyers. So she, the judge said, we are going to give the Crumbleys each an independent lawyer, and to speak about these problems of staying together and the conflict that would probably enact. And there's going to be, on April 5th, at 10 a.m., there was a tentative date set for us to hear more about this issue. And also, Ethan Crumley will be back in court every 30 days. He has to come back. So we'll be hearing again. They're keeping him in an adult setting, which personally I don't recommend. I think this kid likely had issues that were exacerbated, it sounds like, from the parents, and not being treated appropriate for his age and needs and responsibilities. And to put him in with adults, I feel, is inhumane. I don't think children should be with adults. They just shouldn't. He's at risk for all kinds of weird things. And they're trying to be good. But I mean, I think he should be in a juvenile facility. But when there's a mass shooting, we tend to go, that's horrible, you're an adult. Which I think is very problematic, because why do we have laws with an age related to, maturity, if we're not going to follow it just based on severity? Why don't we look at who around the child helped exacerbate and cause the issue? I think there is some shared responsibility. I do. Anyways, so they're going to look in on him. Every 30 days we'll hear how he's doing with the adults, and they think about, like, should he be moved to the juvenile facility or not. I hope they do. So we'll hear about if the parents get their own independent lawyers, which they probably should. And that's the Crumley case. Our next case is just a small update on Barry Morphew. His lawyers have asked that the judge hold so it's called voir dire, which is all the jury instructions and the questionnaires that the jury fills out, they want them held longer than the 3-year limit that Colorado holds jury materials for, and the judge denied that. The reason they wanted that held is for appeal process. So maybe they do think the case is strong enough against their client. Maybe not. Maybe they were just trying to be careful. But anyways, that was denied. We'll be finding out more. They're going to be doing jury selection right now. So that's why they're filing stuff about juries. And we'll hear more about Barry in the near future. Another update case, just some finalizing. I haven't really spoken about this case. It was the Chandler Halderson case. He was sentenced last week on March 17th to life in prison without parole for the death of his parents. So he had multiple counts, 2 counts each for the big M of his parents, and then there was dismemberment, and then so 2 counts for each person, and then counts for lying to the police, false report, and making a false report because he said that they were missing when he knew exactly what he had done. I might talk more about this case in a future deep dive. Just there's a pattern of these cases having to do with, it seems like young men in their 20s. I think one was in his early 30s, but it seems like boys who are maybe spoiled, or maybe they're just sociopaths, allegedly, but that they get caught by their parents about lying about what they're really doing with their lives, or maybe just being told to finally, like, get out, get a job, do your own, like, you're not going to be, we're not taking care of you anymore. Those are the things that seem to be precipitating these horrible events where then the son just takes care of everybody all at once. It's kind of scary, and I don't know, maybe we could talk about it as related to parenting, and is there any pattern that we see? We're not blaming the victims, obviously, but I mean, how does this happen where some of these boys in their 20s and 30s, when they're told to get off the dole, get out of the house, go get yourself a job, what precipitated that to turn into, like, annihilating the whole family? It's a little strange. So right after he got his sentence, the next day they did apply they did put in an appeal, an intent to appeal, which is, it's just part of the process that they appeal, post-conviction process. Anyways, he's not good now. All right, Corrections Corner. Last week I told you that Sherry Papini, the young lady who had faked her own kidnapping, basically, with the help of an ex. I told you that her DNA was found at his house on a Honest Tea bottle, which, of course, that's kind of funny that it was a Honest Tea bottle that showed that somebody wasn't honest. Actually, it was her ex-boyfriend who helped her, Reyes's DNA, but that it had matched the DNA found on her when she was supposedly released, but we know that just meant she came home. So that's what just helped make that connection and show what actually happened there. I said it was her DNA that they found on the bottle, and that is not true. It was both his DNA on the bottle that they know was his, found at his house, that matched the DNA found on her clothes when she was returned. And we're going to hear more about that, what they do related to her lying about that. Right now, I believe she bonded out. I will check. But she will be going to trial then for lying to the police. And maybe there'll be charges against, we don't know if he was given any immunity for telling his side of the story, or if he will also be charged. That is still a developing case. The Summer Wells, there's just a quick, this isn't a connections corner, it's more of like a catch-up corner for a couple of these little cases. There was, in early March, there was another search Midwest EquiSearch, I believe. Duty Ron talked about it, and he had the Midwest EquiSearch people there. They didn't say exactly where they were looking, but they went out and did another small targeted search in Tennessee looking for anything to help them find Summer Wells. Summer Wells was missing since last summer. She was 5 at the time she went missing. She was going to start kindergarten in the fall. She has not been found. We have no idea if her parents were accurate in reporting or were inaccurate at reporting exactly what happened. And there's also there was a lot of like chitter chatter on the internet because her grandmother had given an interview or to somebody, or had spoken to the public through an outlet, and everybody, I mean, she just said, yes, I gave her, she said the candy that she gave her, that reportedly, you know, because her mother had said, oh, she gave her a piece of candy and then she went in the house. Well, the grandmother just said it was peppermint candy because that was her favorite. And she said it wasn't planting flowers, it was planting cactus. Is she being accurate? Is she being honest? We don't know. We'll hear more about this. Again, if you pay attention to these cases, it seems like a lot is being done. It goes quiet for a long time after the initial search, and they're looking around before, like with the West case and other cases, before people are charged. It's usually over a year later. We'll find out. So you might hear stuff about that. Again, it's kind of just chitter chatter. If you want to listen to anybody who has a background in analyzing what people say, the Interview Room with Chris McDonagh did a couple of, he was, he had been a detective in Santa Monica, I believe, California, working with child crimes. He takes some very close look at some of these cases that involve younger people and crimes against children. He has a friend who sometimes comes on his channel, the Interview Room, and it was a forensic linguist, I believe, who looks at, forensically looks at statements. They looked at, the community calls her Grandis because her name is also Candace, as well as the mother's name is Candace. And so they went through her statements and sort of spoke about it. Very interesting. Again, it's all speculation. It's all supposition. We don't know. This is all alleged. But it's interesting about looking at people's statements and what you can really see from that. The last thing I want to talk to you about is Matthew Coleman. Matthew Coleman is the case. He will be, it was last summer again. It was August 7th when 7th through the 9th, where he took his children. The mother didn't know where they went. He was a scuba surfer type instructor. He did surfer classes for children. They lived in Santa Monica, California. Had a lovely life, 2 little children, a boy who was 2 and a baby girl who was 10 months old. Khalil was the son and Roxy was the daughter. They actually were getting ready to go on a trip, and he got in the van, took the kids, and took off, and she didn't really know, the mom, Abby, where they went. Then they did keep in contact, and just on March 2nd, Rolling Stone did a very good, deeper dive into some documents that were released, and it had FBI information, like the FBI agents interview information with this dad, Matthew. So what he did was, what he's accused of doing, allegedly, is taking his children right over the Tijuana border into Mexico, a little bit into Mexico, and then he allegedly used a spear gun, like you use for fishing, and Big M'd the 2 children. And then a farmer found him. He went back to the hotel. And what Rolling Stone described were these documents. It also included text messages between him and his wife. It is disturbing. He was into reading, he had been a strong Christian, but he somehow got pulled into the QAnon movement and was reading about, I don't know, he somehow felt his children had DNA serpent DNA, and that they got it from the mom, and that they were going to grow up and destroy the world, and he had to destroy them before they could destroy the world. And some of his text messages to his wife included things like she seems to be, you can't really tell, was she just like going along with it to placate him, but it seemed like she was also saying, yes, I will take back the country. I don't know if you know about the QAnon movement, but it tends to be mixing, it's called Christo-fascism, so taking sort of like Christian faith but mixing it with a form of fascism, and like we have to take back, and then it's also this alien stuff mixed in. It's very sort of surreal, and we're not exactly sure how they got into this. They were just previously strong Christians. I don't know, but he some of the texts were like, maybe you should burn the family Bibles because I think maybe there's a chip in it. He explained to the FBI agents something about this serpent DNA and how it came from his wife, and that he realized this as he was laying in the hotel bed. He saw all the pieces come together like in the Matrix, and it says he felt he was Neo from the Matrix, but I'm assuming he meant like Neo, like he could see all the pieces come together. You know, part of the QAnon movement is like taking the red pill, so it sort of brings in that movie idea and scientific, a science fiction aspect. He will be going. He was supposed to have start the trial process, and his lawyers asked to have it put off 6 months so they can get ready. And so in May, we're looking to start that trial. But it's very sad. So at this time, just the mom is left. She lost her babies. Her husband is jailed. He's lost in this delusion of serpent DNA, aliens, government conspiracies. It's a little frightening. So, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is something that nobody's talking about. And maybe it's not a big deal, but as far as I know right now, this woman, Catherine Cooley, she was living in the San Francisco area. She was a CEO for the biggest cryptocurrency conglomerates, and they had a new CEO come in all of a sudden. That's what the reporting looks like, and she's missing. But nobody's really reporting her missing. So I'm going to follow up on that. If you're interested in following that case and knowing more, I just think it's interesting that this woman has been missing. It's been since July of last year. The CEO that took over for her is also out now, and he left sort of quickly too. So speaking of like Matthew Coleman and getting into conspiracies and like the whole government stuff and I can't say she was somehow eliminated or like why is nobody talking. It's just weird that she was like the youngest female CEO of this huge I think it was called Binance. I'll look it up. It should be in the notes below. But the fact that she was replaced, but nobody knows where she was. And she, again, it's kind of like our other people where their social media cuts off, so like proof of life. But nobody's, I guess you need somebody to report you missing. So as far as I know, she hasn't been formally reported missing, but nobody can find her, and she's not posting, and she hasn't updated any of her LinkedIn stuff, and it's just kind of odd. So, who knows? Now, that also might remind you of the Heidi Plank case, which we're in that. Heidi Plank was the mom who was I think she was the comptroller she was in the finance department of a company that was being investigated by like the federal people for some misdoings, like taking money. She went missing, left her sons, I believe it was a soccer game, and then didn't pick up. But she had a history. She was the one where her dog was found in the apartments in LA. So this was San Francisco. So, but the idea that these high power, like women in business can just disappear. Now, Heidi Plank was reported by her ex-husband. As far as I can tell, Catherine Cooley doesn't have, like, she didn't have a family. She was like high power career woman. So there's nobody that notices she's gone. So nobody reports her. It seems odd, right? I don't know. I will look more into it and see if she's been found. But I just thought, I've been meaning to bring that up since my first episode, and I just haven't really gotten around to it. But if you are interested in this kind of thing, let me know. I just thought it was interesting because of the whole mystique around cryptocurrency, and it does have ties with like the geopolitical aspect of moving around money that's not through formal bank processes and money laundering aspects. There's that whole situation with crypto and the fact that she's associated with crypto. It kind of just, it seems interesting, and it seems like somebody should be looking for her. So that's all the updates. Hopefully you will give this a thumbs up, like, and you will subscribe to my channel and tell other people if you like it. And I will see you next week with an updated on everything that's going on. And until then, stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.